Hello and welcome back to On the Grid Podcast, Season 4, Episode 31. And at the time that this episode will be released, we are pre-recording it, it will be race week. And there's been a long time between the two races, and we're very excited to get this back. Joining with me as ever is Adrian Keita. How are you today? Are you looking forward to COTA? What's your thoughts?
Finally, it's about time that we've got a race. Because as much as football's given me a lot of excitement, Formula One is one of my true loves as well, and it's rather been boring without Formula One for the last couple of weeks. We're finally back. Like we're saying, we're pre-recording this episode, so at the time of recording, it'll be well, we are recording this a week in advance. So by the time this will be released, it will be race week. But yeah, I'm finally looking forward to a race weekend, and with COTA, anything could happen. But this racetrack is so unpredictable and a rather exciting one. But the only damper really is we won't get to see Daniel Ricciardo in his cowboy outfit, or we say that, but he could be there still in spirit, and in he could make an appearance. So by all accounts, I'm looking forward to this weekend. That's for sure.
Absolutely. The first race where we see Liam Lawson take Daniel Ricciardo's seat. We'll look at a little bit at the news before cracking on with our coach predictions. So first of all, Lewis Hamilton has made some comments in the week about the possibility of racing in Africa. He said there's too long since the last time we raced in Africa, the last race being in 1993 at Kyalami, which has been in talks for another race there. There's also talks of Rwanda hosting a race. What's your thoughts on that?
My initial thoughts, I mean, definitely the temperatures will probably play into come into play a lot with reliability in high temperature circuits being a bit of a task in the past, as we saw in Bahrain when they had their races in I believe it was obviously in the afternoons. Obviously, it had to be moved to a night race because of the high temperatures, and the cars just couldn't compete in those temperatures. But I wouldn't be opposed to a race in Africa. I mean, we are racing on all other continents, so why not Africa? It would complete the pool of Formula One, and I think it will obviously diversify Formula One a long way, making the sport accessible also in Africa. But I think it will be a massive job to put on a racetrack in Africa. But Formula One, a multi-billion trillion business that I'm sure can probably fund that and probably can make that go ahead. I wouldn't be opposed to a race in South Africa, Rwanda also on the short list. I don't know, but yeah, South Africa. Can that return? Hopefully so, because like you say, it's been a long time since we've had a race in Africa, and I think a lot of fans would welcome it with open arms.
Yeah, I mean, there's talks of representation, and that's become a big thing over the recent years. Yet we've not got any races in Africa. We've only got the one in South America as well. So there's a lot of untapped potential there. And you look at them bringing in more and more US circuits, and the countless European circuits. There's an untapped market there. We're talking about representing, it's a global sport. We're racing in five of the seven continents. The only inhabited continent we're not racing in is Africa, where population is over 1 billion. And there's a massive market in South America as well, which is untapped, apart from obviously Brazil, which is one of the best races of the season. So you've got these big areas which are just completely unused by Formula One. And obviously would be the concerns around the heat and everything, which can be factored into. We don't race at Bahrain in the middle of July, where it's going to be 40, 50 degrees. We race there in March. Same with countless other places. So there is a way and means about going about it, and I'm sure there will be a suitable outcome. The other thing would be about Rwanda's human rights issues. which I think we will leave to more qualified people to talk about than ourselves. But yeah, like I said, I think we need to be looking at diversifying the calendar and making it more accessible to more people. Because at the moment it's not. Moving on then to 2025 and the seats talk. So we've still got one seat up for grabs, and there's a lot of talk about another seat. So we'll focus on Sauber first. I want you to give your predictions who will be racing, who will be filling that final seat next year.
Are you sure that it's just Sauber? I believe that Liam Lawson isn't confirmed for 2025.
Well, he's not confirmed for 2025, but I mean, they've dropped Daniel Ricciardo. It's pretty much confirmed, isn't it? The fact that they've dropped Ricciardo and now they've given Lawson the seat till the end of the season. You'd argue that Lawson is all but confirmed.
Yeah. But let's say until he is confirmed, that seat is still up for grabs for anyone. But until he is confirmed, yeah, like I say, that seat is up for grabs. But like you say, it is likely to be Liam Lawson. But until that confirmation comes through, then we can't speculate anything about that. But Sauber, I think it's increasingly likely to be Valtteri Bottas. Um, I don't think Zhou Guanyu's got a leg to stand on here, really. I think Valtteri Bottas will probably extend his contract at Sauber and pair up with Nico Hulkenberg at the team. I don't know where else Sauber could go to. I don't think there's many drivers that could really appeal to them. Whether Teo Porcher has a shout still in the question, I don't know. Whether Felipe Drugovich could make the switch, I don't know. Whether Mick Schumacher could even have even have a say in this conversation. But I do think that it's increasingly likely going to be Valtteri Bottas that fills in that final seat on the grid, or should we say penultimate seat on the grid until Liam Lawson is confirmed.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said it for a few weeks. I think Valtteri Bottas will get that seat. I do think it will only be like a 1 year type of contract. And then Audi will look to bring somebody new in for the new regulations in 26. But like you said, Théo Pourchaire, he's part of that setup. Is there a chance he could get a seat? You know, you never know. You could look someone like Bortoleto as well, currently leading in F2, or a bit of a rogue shout, maybe like a Drugovich, like you said. But I do think it's going to be Valtteri Bottas. He's outperforming Guan Yu Zhou, and it just looks the most likely of appointments. Another sort of highly sort of speculated seat is the Red Bull seat. Now, we haven't spoken about it for a few weeks. Seems to have died down a little bit now that sort of their performance level have dropped. Who do you think will be partnering Max Verstappen next season? Do you think it'll be Sergio Perez? Do you think maybe Liam Lawson has a shout? Or even Daniel Ricciardo could be back in the fold?
Unfortunately, as much as it pains me, I do think that Sergio Perez is going to get that seat. As much as it pains me to say this, but I well and truly, I think I speak for everyone. But ever since he extended his contract at Red Bull, everything just seems to have been going like Red Bull's world has been flipped upside down since that contract extension. We've just seen him drop their levels, just being absolutely nowhere. Don't get me wrong, Max Verstappen's still performing at a very high level, but it's not the level that we used to see in Red Bull over the last 2 or so years that they've been performing at. Let's not forget that Max Verstappen has 7 race victories this season, leading the championship in a below par car. And we've said it numerous times on numerous occasions on this podcast. It's simply the Max Verstappen effect. It's the driver and it's not the car. Max is simply outperforming the car that he's got at hand, and he's somehow dialing it in to gain podiums and to keep that advantage over Lando Norris at a respectable 60-ish points. So yeah, as much as it pains me to say, Sergio Perez is likely to keep that seat. Liam Lawson, I think it's a little bit too early. He's likely to be confirmed as an RB driver next season, probably some point before the end of the season. And then Daniel Ricciardo, I think he's in line to get some sort of advisor's job at Red Bull in that fold. So by all means, it's going to be Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen for another year. But it wouldn't surprise me if Red Bull do do make something happen in 2025 if Sergio Perez falls short of their expectation once again. I think they've really got to act on it because we've seen at RB they've acted on it a couple of times with De Vries and with Daniel Ricciardo now. So I think that cutting edge is at their sister team. I don't think they've simply had that cutting edge for the last couple of seasons at Red Bull, and I think they've just been way too patient with Sergio Perez. And I think that if he has a rocky start to the season in 2025, I think it could be over. But I don't see Daniel Ricciardo getting that seat now, especially he's been axed from RB.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think Sergio Perez will keep his seat. Um, yeah, going into 2026 though, I think that will be the time to make a change. You've got the time then to assess Liam Lawson against Yuki Tsunoda. You got to make a decision about Yuki Tsunoda because he's been in sport. This is his fourth season in Formula One. If he's going into 5 seasons in Formula One and you don't think he's ready to make that jump to a top team, then he shouldn't be in that setup. That team is seen as a junior team and it is seen as a stepping stone to the main Red Bull team. If after 5 years Yuki Tsunoda is not at that level, he needs to be let go. There are plenty of suitors up and down the grid. I think will be looking at that situation with a keen interest because also from Yuki Tsunoda's side, he can't just be sitting there in a junior team. He needs to be able to sort of assert himself and say, no, actually, I'm good enough to be racing for a top team and I'm going to prove it, even if he has to sort of initially take that step down into another team. So maybe like an Audi, for example, or, who knows, or a Haas, for example. But he needs to have that confidence to say, no, I'm good enough. I'm going to show it outside the Red Bull setup and then hopefully get that call up to a big team like a Mercedes, like a Ferrari in a few years' time. But he needs to have that bit of cutting edge. Also in the news, the F1 rookie race, which was scheduled to be after the part of the Abu Dhabi testing program after the end of the season, which they do. It's been delayed until 2025. I think this is a shame, really, because I think this is a good idea in concept. You can see, and actually, it means something as well with the post-season testing. It doesn't really mean much. It's just an opportunity for some younger drivers to get some experience driving a Formula One car. Whereas now, well, next season, because it's been delayed until 2025, this is a real opportunity to show what they can do in a Formula One car in a competitive setting. So that's a shame there. We'll move on now to our predictions for COTA, for the Circuit of the Americas. So do you want to kick things off with your sprint qualifying and sprint race predictions?
Do you not want my star predictions first?
No, we're going to mix it up this time. We're going to do it backwards.
Okay, all right. Backwards and forwards, forwards and backwards. For my sprint shootout, by the way, before we recorded this, Ethan did mention that it is a sprint weekend, and I completely forgot that it's a sprint weekend. So my bad. I had to quickly brush some ideas, and now that I look at my notepad whilst we're discussing this, I think I have made a few mistakes. I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna roll with the punches, and I'm gonna hopefully dodge him like Muhammad Ali. For my sprint shootout, I've gone with Oscar Piastri on sprint pole position, with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen rounding out the top three. And I've gone with Charles Leclerc and George Russell in fourth and fifth. And for my sprint, I've gone with a Lando Norris victory. I think Lando has that slight cutting edge over Oscar Piastri this season. Oscar's still going to secure a P2 finish. I see Max dropping out of the top three, and I see Charles Leclerc claiming the final podium place, with Max Verstappen in fourth and Carlos Sainz in fifth.
That's interesting because I've also gone for Oscar Piastri on sprint pole. I've then gone for Charles Leclerc in second, and then Lando Norris and Max Verstappen third and fourth, with Carlos Sainz in fifth. And then for the sprint race, I've gone for Oscar Piastri to take the victory, Lando Norris in second, then Charles Leclerc on the podium with Carlos Sainz in fourth and George Russell finishing in fifth. And then moving on to the main race itself, I've gone for McLaren front row. I've gone for Lando Norris on pole this time with Oscar Piastri second. I've then gone Lewis Hamilton in third, Charles Leclerc fourth, and Max Verstappen fifth. And then for the race itself, again, I've gone for a McLaren 1-2 with Norris leading Piastri, Leclerc to take the final podium position with Hamilton and Verstappen fourth and fifth.
Right, just before I say my predictions for qualifying of the race, what do you see happening to Max Verstappen in the sprint? I saw that you didn't mention him in the top five. What's happening there?
No, I just think he'll get a little bit caught out with a couple of the drivers around him. I mean, I had him qualifying fourth, so technically he could lose two positions and that be that. But I just don't. I think that he's going to drag that Red Bull through, but there's only going to be so much he can do. I think in qualifying is a good opportunity for him to get as high as possible, because he's one of the best qualifiers on the grid. And then maybe the race pace is where the Red Bull will start to struggle a little bit and be a bit open because there's lots of DRS zones around COTA, and there's a good opportunity for overtaking. It's one of the better circuits for overtaking. So that's my rationale behind that.
Okay. Uh, Now we've had a bit of a discussion about that. Let's move on to qualifying and the race for myself. So, yeah, I've gone very bold. I don't know why, but my spidey senses are tingling a Ferrari pole position with Charles Leclerc. I don't know why. I just have a instinct that Charles Leclerc, especially after his last couple of pole positions in the last couple of races, he's just going to stick it on pole and do that. I've got Lando Norris and Max Verstappen to round out the top three with Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz in fourth and fifth. But I don't see Charles Leclerc hanging on to the race lead for long. I see Lando Norris winning the race at COTA with Charles Leclerc dropping to second. Oscar Piastri will get a podium finish in third. Max Verstappen will finish fourth, and a certain Sir Lewis Hamilton pops into my top five as he finishes in fifth.
Okay. And we will be, well, we've got a bit of a delay between recording this and actually seeing whether these predictions are accurate. But we'll keep updated with that and we will see you
Star
all
predictions?
next.
Star predictions now?
I knew I'd forget that. I knew I'd forget that. I did do it backwards, but I knew I'd forget that. So we can cut this bit out. The power of editing. So for my star predictions, I've gone for Williams to score points at some point over the weekend. And then I've gone for either a VSC or a safety car. So one of the two. So we haven't had a safety car in what feels like years. I think it's been since like the seventh or eighth race of the season, and we're now towards the back end. It's been a while since we've seen one, so I think we this actually could be a crazy prediction. And we will see one at some point, either the sprint race or the main race.
I'd love to have Bernd Mylander's job, just chilling on the sidelines and not actually doing anything because what has he done in the last couple of races? He's not really been there. He's driven the formation laps and then he's peeled in and that's that. He's essentially just had one racing lap and that's it. Um, but for my star predictions, I've gone for a Yuki Tsunoda points finish, whichever in the sprint or in the race. Doesn't matter where. I think Yuki is kind of destined to get some points. I think Liam Lawson will be on his tail. I think he'll be wanting to push for points, but I think it will be Yuki Tsunoda that gets the points for RB. And then for my second star prediction, I've gone for a red flag. I think that we have seen a couple of crashes at COTA. If you can remember, jog your memory back to that Fernando Alonso crash a few years back, or it might have been last year or the year before that, where he just went wide and just smashed into the barrier. I don't think that was a red flag situation, but it was close enough to be a red flag situation.
Think that was a couple of years ago. I think it was before he joined Aston, because I
Yeah,
think
it was
the
Alpine.
guy that crashed into him was Lance Stroll.
Yes, exactly. That's where I'm kind of drawing the lines together with this one. I don't necessarily see Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso coming together, um, but I do see an incident heading into that hairpin. I think there'll be a big impact, or even into turn one. Also a corner that's prone to a bit of a crash and a bit of a mistake from a couple of the drivers. So, especially with the high winds that usually happen around Texas, anything can happen, and I think a red flag could be on the cards. So those are my two star predictions. Yuki Tsunoda points throughout any point of the weekend and a red flag to be flown at least once in the race or the sprint.
Okay, and now that's everything we've got time for in this episode. So whilst this is being pre-recorded, we will be keeping an eye on it when it comes to the COTA race itself. And we'll be back next week where we'll be reviewing these predictions, talking about the race, giving our 1 to 10 driver ratings, and then looking ahead to Mexico. Thank you all for listening, and goodbye.